So, welcome and thank you for attending my talk. I know I have one of the worst slots at the conference, right? The one right before the after party, right? So you're after all day of attending sessions and getting more and more knowledge. So I will try to be as quick as possible here, and hopefully you won't fall asleep. So what we're going to talk about today is augmented reality. You might be wondering, why augmented reality? I mean, this topic seems kind of generic, right? And you probably heard about augmented reality in the past, probably past like 10 years, you probably heard about this. So this talk is not going to be about any particular piece of hardware, I mean one piece of hardware that was released recently or anything like that, rather about the landscape of augmented reality right now, as we have it right now. I mean, I'm gonna try to lay down all the foundations, like how we got to the point that we are right now with augmented reality, where are we right now, what tools we have at our disposal as software developers right now, and where we are headed with that. So what are our options, and also why is it important to talk about augmented reality right now. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Rafał Legiędź. I flew over all the way from Poland in Europe just to give this talk. And I work as a software consultant for a company called SolidBrain, where I mainly am responsible for delivering mixed reality experiences, so augmented reality, virtual reality stuff. I'm also a Microsoft MVP. They awarded me that because I talked too much about HoloLens for past 2 years, so apparently I earned it because of that. And also I'm a conference organizer. I organized a conference called DevConf in Poland for the last 9 years. It's in September in Krakow, Poland, so if you happen to be in Poland at this time, feel free to come. So, first question, why? Why there is a session about augmented reality at all? So, I'm not a big expert in this field. I'm rather an enthusiast, huge enthusiast. I do believe in this technology, and this talk kind of was shaped in my mind after giving lots of talks about augmented reality and HoloLens during the last 2 years. And I actually gave I think 40 plus talks around the world during the last 2 years about augmented reality. And what I observed was that my audiences were mainly software developers. And my impression after all those talks was there are still many unanswered questions for those people. And I'm talking about software developers. So it occurred that even those tech-savvy people, very tech-savvy people, they do not know still where we are when it comes to augmented reality. I mean, where the industry is. Is it production ready? Is it worth investing your time and money into getting to know how it works and how to develop on all those platforms? And it seems like many people in the software development world still doesn't believe in this technology, so they do not care about learning and pushing this technology forward. That was my impression, based on what kind of questions I was getting after my talks. So then, I did lots of talks also to business people, not software developers, and it's even worse. So they do not know at all where we are when it comes to augmented reality. But me, as a person who is involved with that for the last 2 years, it's kind of obvious that, well, the technology is ready. You can actually embrace it right now. We can get our hands on it. We have all the available tools. We can and we should invest our time and money into it, and we can actually earn money out of it, and we can help industries embrace this technology as well. So that's why I'm giving this kind of talk, just to raise the awareness for all of you, like software developers and business people as well, because I think that's about time to start doing it. So let's start with the basics, I would say. So what is augmented reality? Where is it? I mean, what kind of word is it? So there's this magical word which is parallel into our word, which is called metaverse. And metaverse is, well, it's the convergence of all the virtual worlds, like virtually enhanced physical realities, physically persisted virtual realities, and the internet. So basically the sum of all virtual realities, augmented realities, and internet, this parallel virtual world. And augmented reality lives somewhere in this world. It's a group of experiences that we can get depending on what kind of device we're using. So we have this kind of an axis, well, like this one, which is called Virtuality Access, where on one end we have full physical reality, on the other end of the spectrum we have full virtual reality. And the difference is kind of obvious. I mean, physical reality is, well, something we interact with on our regular daily basis, hopefully. And the other reality, full virtual reality, is something which we experience when we, for example, put headsets like Oculus Rift or HTC Vive on, where the user is being completely cut off from the physical world, and the only thing he or she experiences is like a fully synthetic computer-generated world, and the user's mind is tricked into thinking that the real world doesn't exist, but the only thing that is real is this virtual world. And augmented reality lives very near this physical end of the spectrum. And why is that? Well, that's because whenever we're using any augmented reality device or experiencing any kind of experience, I would say, is that the user doesn't lose the connection with the physical world. The user is still fully aware that, well, everything that's physical around him or her is still there, right? It's hard to bump on the wall, etc., right? So because the physical world is still around. In augmented reality, there are just some things added to our world, like virtual things that are blended into our real environment. So that's why it's kind of still near the physical end of the spectrum. The other definition that you can find in different sources might name augmented reality as mediated reality. And I'm just putting it here because, well, sometimes there's confusion. I mean, you can find different sources and augmented reality is just named differently. But the true definition of mediated reality is that it was introduced because most of the time when we're talking about augmented reality, we're talking about things, well, we're talking about enhancing physical reality, but also we can remove something from our physical reality. And augmenting isn't a perfect word for describing that, because augmented means we're adding something or enhancing something. So the better definition would be mediated reality, where we mediate between the reality and the user. So we can remove stuff from our environment or add stuff to our environment. So sometimes we can see those two definitions being used. And to give you an example of how mediated reality might look like removing stuff from our environment is one of those prototypes. This is called brand killer, which can remove any brand from user's vision. Can you imagine what kind of horror that can be for future vendors, right? If anyone would have access to this kind of visor, right? So they would have to probably reinvent the way they advert stuff, right? I mean, could you imagine walking down the street and just don't see any billboard anymore, like only blank slates there? I mean, it's all probably possible sooner or later. The other thing is that whenever we're talking about augmented reality, we probably think about augmenting our vision, but augmented reality means we're augmenting reality. It's not augmenting visual reality. So the definition of augmented reality actually spans a little bit further, meaning that it also contains all the experiences that augments all our senses, meaning taste, meaning touch, hearing, etc. And it's kind of easy to give you an example of other devices that you might not think they are augmented reality devices, but they actually are. And the best example, I think, is our noise cancelling headphones. They're basically mediating reality between the environment and the user, right? Because, well, you can cut off some voices from your environment. I mean, it's nothing, it doesn't differ much from what I've just shown you about the brand killer thing, right? And there are many others like that. So I like the example of augmented reality device for vision impaired people, which enhance the touch sense, so to say. So imagine the kind of a helmet or just kind of a thing that you put in your head with depth sensors. So whenever the blind person walks through the environment, the sensor detects where are the obstacles on the way, right? So we can detect what height is the obstacle placed on. And there might be some kind of small devices put on the clothing on that person that vibrates. So whenever you detect an object on some height, the person can feel vibration on a particular height on the leg, for example, so that the person knows what height the obstacle is, right? So this is, for example, augmenting touch, right? There's also lots of examples like for augmenting our hearing as well, like noise cancelling headphones, for example, or there's a nice app which is called Detour. This is app for mobile phones, and it's for sightseeing. So I used it once or twice. When I read about it, I wanted to use it because you can sightsee a city that you've never been to, and you put your headphones on, and based on GPS and this app, you got some extra ambient noises. So based on where you are in the city, you might be there at different time of a day, for example, so there might not be, for example, the traffic that usually is there, or not that many people that usually are there, but the app will fill this silence with those noises that are usually there. So this is kind of a pretty cool experience, actually. To give you an example as well of augmenting our touch is Tesla suit, for example. Oh, you can't see it. Hold on a sec. Let me do this. Whoops. How do I? Oh, this direction. How do I? Should I pause it? Can you see it? Okay, there you go. So we actually can order, if you're a developer, you can order Tesla suit, which is for virtual reality experiences actually. So this is the full haptic suit, so we can just, as a programmer, programming in Unreal Engine, I think, well, we can program touches and all the haptic feedbacks on the suit. And actually, I have friends in Poland, they have VR shop, and they managed to get 2 of them, so it actually does exist, this suit. So yeah, this is all happening. If you watched ever the Ready Player One, so this kind of reality is kind of at our hand, I would say. How do I get back now? Okay. So, going back to augmented reality and the most common definition of it. So right now, the most attention are getting all the experiences that usually enhance our vision. Probably for an obvious reason, because, well, we can achieve a lot with it. I mean, I think it might bring more value to many industries or people than any other thing, I'd say. So my thinking here is that most of the focus will go and is going into enhancing our vision, and all the other ones would be eventually probably merge with that, so that eventually we'll end up having like one super device that would just augment several of our senses. But even with that, I mean, I'm saying that most of the companies are working only on enhancing our vision, but it's not like very easy problem to tackle. This is the whole new area of problems to solve. It's nothing like mobile phones or personal computers or any other hardware project that is out there. It's kind of So to achieve a good device like that one of those that we're seeing here, the biggest challenge here is to create the optical see-through glasses that can deliver like wide field of view, of vision of the rendered objects. You have to have a bunch of sensors for detecting objects in your area. You have to have good batteries to power it up, everything. You have to have good ergonomics because this is something that you're wearing on your head, not in your pocket or your hand. So it has to be very comfortable because, well, even with the first version of HoloLens that you might be familiar with, that's this device. I mean, even if they were well designed, but it occurred they have their flaws. I mean, they are not that comfortable. So the second iteration actually took ergonomics to the next level. So to create a good augmented reality device, like a smart glasses thing, it took really lots of effort to do. So it will take probably still several iterations until we will see a proper, like ultimate augmented reality device. But what we have right now, it's a very good thing to start working on. But let's still take a step back. And why do I think it happened that the society or like people in general forgot about augmented reality? Because you might still vividly remember when Google Glasses were announced. It was like in 2011, as far as I remember. And the hype was real. The Google did a great show. They showed new class of devices that they're going to introduce. They basically showed something that no one ever shown, and it was Google. So most of the people believe that it's going to be something, right? But it quickly occurred, it failed, right? But at the beginning, the consumers, because it was supposed to be a consumer-targeted product. So the consumers very quickly extrapolated possible usages. So we started to think, okay, so many things are going to be possible right now, right? We're gonna have like things like Iron Man has, right? But it quickly occurred that society wasn't ready for this kind of devices being used by regular people during like a day. And the hardware wasn't ready because Google Glasses, I don't know if you ever tried them. It was kind of a poor device actually, right? Not worth the money. So in my opinion, after it failed, people kind of forgot about augmented reality. I mean, I feel they put it in kind of a bucket like, okay, maybe sometime in the future, maybe someone would come up with something, but let's forget about it for some time. Then Pokemon Go happened, right? So it reminded us that, okay, augmented reality can be cool and still, I mean, can deliver some value. I mean, if we can think Pokemon Go delivers value, but still, I mean, it showed that it is possible to do cool stuff with it. But still, it kind of showed that, okay, it's only entertainment. I mean, what else we can do with that? So from consumer's perspective, regular person perspective, it's still not ready. I mean, there's no way to, when you look at it, there's no way to monetize your effort in augmented reality. I mean, if you're a software developer and you think about a consumer market, it's really hard to think about monetizing your effort. I mean, it's easy. I mean, it used to be easy. I don't know how it looks like now, to write a game for a mobile phone and just sell it, but it's hard right now to write a good AR experience for a mobile phone and sell it for the same money. It's just not there yet, in my opinion. So that's why software developers kind of think about it as a thing in the future, and consumers as well. But luckily, vendors and industries, they thought a little bit differently. So if you know the history of Google Glasses, then you know that. If you don't know, then I'm going to tell you about it. So Google Glasses, actually, they didn't fail. I mean, they failed on the consumer market, but what Google did after this failure was they learned their lessons, they noticed that there were actually several big companies that were trying to embrace it within their processes. So they started working with those companies, those industries. And what they did, they realized that not consumers might take advantage of this technology right now, but the big companies, industries, right? So they started to work with those companies, and they created the next iteration of Google Glasses, which exists and which is released. But it's not mainstream. Like, not everyone hears about it because it's an enterprise product right now, and actually has it in its name. So the first version of Google Glasses was Explorer Edition. It was meant to be a consumer product. And the second version, which is slightly better version than the first one, it's called Enterprise Edition right now. So it's now obvious that it's for enterprises. And it's not like you can go to the website and just buy one. You have to apply for a special program, et cetera, et cetera. And Microsoft, they kind of knew it, and when they released HoloLens 1, for example, they clearly stated that this is enterprise product, so that you don't think about it as, okay, this is a cool device, I'm going to write a game on it, and I'll try to sell it. That's not going to happen, right? So the thing is that those most fancy AR devices right now, they're targeted to enterprises. And that's good, because that's where the money is, and that's where we can actually help them, businesses, to embrace this technology. So the other reason to believe that this is the right time to jump on this augmented reality bandwagon is all the signs that are there for the last 2 years, meaning that, or maybe 3 years now, meaning that beginning in 2016, so all the biggest companies, tech companies, started to jumping on this bandwagon. So starting in 2016, HoloLens 1 was released by Microsoft. Then 2017, Apple released AR kit for their devices. And sometime around this date as well, Google released AR Core for their Android devices. So I'm not counting Google Glass here, which happened in 2011. But it showed us that, and Facebook, it was probably somewhere in 2016 as well, I think, or 15. Well, they started investing in augmented reality, but we could see it. They don't have any device or any toolkit that is being used as AR Kit or AR Core, but they started to use AR stuff in their filters in messengers you might probably be aware of. So we can put a mask on your face, for example, because they detect faces. So all those movements, I think this is a clear sign that if all those big companies are jumping on it, then it must be something. That's my feeling, at least, right? And it's not only them. If you would Google for it, you will probably see like Samsung, Huawei, and Xiaomi, and any other big companies. All of them are stating that, okay, we're going to take this market, right? Because right now there's going to be a battle, like who will get the most out of this market, right? I mean, there's clearly money in it. So now it depends on, who will grab it, right? So even if it's only actually from this group of companies, it's Microsoft that has kind of the most advanced and nicest glasses, actually. And for example, Facebook, Apple, or Google, they do not have any. All of them, like Facebook, Apple, etc., all of them are mentioning from time to time that they are working on their piece of software that you're going to put on your head. So there are different speculations that it might, I don't know, we might end up with Apple giving us some kind of headset like next year or something like that. I don't know, but it's highly possible that it will happen. And also, well, if you Google for vendors of AR glasses, it's not only Microsoft or Google doing it. It's actually, if you Google it, you would end up finding around like 100 companies that are creating some kind of headsets, AR headsets. And those are all kinds of headsets. Like beginning with like highly specialized ones for surgeons, for example, to very consumer ones for like bike riders. There are all sorts of them, right? And it's like that because you have to kind of, the technology is not there for creating one universal headset and deliver all kind of experiences. They have to specialize in kind of specialized areas so that they can deliver AR for those particular people. But with technologies like we see from Microsoft with HoloLenses, we are approaching the direction where we would have like one headset to rule them all, basically, right? Or any kind of this thinking, I would say. So I'm talking about it because we are developers. I mean, I think we are developers, and that's mostly up to us that we embrace this technology and we show this technology to the world by showing it to our peer programmers, by talking about it, by asking our employer to invest in it. I mean, there are many approaches. So with tools available right now, with hardware available right now, you can actually jump on it. You don't have to have money to buy HoloLenses or any other fancy and expensive headset. You can start developing for mobile AR for your phone, because probably everyone has Apple or Android device which is AR enabled. So the tools being used and techniques being used are the same, basically, for phone or the HoloLens. So we can start creating stuff and scenarios and solving some cases using what you have right now and iterate upon it. And you can, I mean, it's worth talking to your current businesses that you work for. I mean, it all depends what kind of industry you're working on, but it's still worth, I mean, asking, right, your bosses, your clients, if you want to start talking about it, because it might happen that, well, they might be interested. So let's go quickly through the history of augmented reality, like real quick. So that I will show you that this is not a very new concept. So it all started, that might be a little bit too small, I guess, but it all started in 19th century, actually, in 1862 with the pepper ghost. This is kind of well-known technique that was being used in theaters. This is a theater stage, this is the audience, and there's a real actor here on the stage and the other actor under the stage, and there's a big piece of glass here. So when you lit that person under the stage, the ghost of that person appeared on the stage next to the real person. And well, that was the first hologram, right? It worked. So we can say it was like 150 years ago. It's not a new concept, right? Then Second World War, companies started experimenting with augmenting pilots' vision. So they put information that were being grabbed from radars in front of pilots' eyes. Then in 1950, teleprompter was developed by Hubert Schlafly. You know what teleprompter is, right? It's being used until now, even nowadays, but it's not a new concept at all. Then in 1961, Philco company, they created first headset that was able to track its position in the space. I mean, the movement, like gyroscope, stuff like that. Then 1963, Bell company, that they do helicopters, they started integrating the vision from the cameras that were mounted below, on the bottom of the helicopter to pilots' helmets as well. Then, this is a very important milestone actually, 1967, Tom Furness, who is considered to be a grandfather of AR and VR, was tasked at US Air Force with the task of creating a helmet for jet fighter pilots. So he is kind of first person who started working on this project. And it was like a long time ago, because US Air Force, they started to have problems with cockpits, because they started to have more and more gauges and all those appliances around, so that they became lacking the space in the cockpit. So their idea was to create a headset which would kind of augment the cockpit and display some stuff around the user, the pilot, with virtual elements. So that was the task of Tom Furness, to develop this kind of helmet. And this was kind of the real beginning of augmented reality. Then in '68, Ivan Sutherland, he developed first augmented reality device that was able to display a cube in front of you. Look at this fancy headset. It was bulky, but it did its job. You will see. So it had see-through glasses that you can see the wireframe of the cube. So you still saw your surroundings, but then you could have a 3D cube rendered in front of you. That's very fancy. Then 1980, Steve Mann, which is one of the pioneers of augmented reality as well, he created his first augmented reality glasses as well, which was called iTap. And that was basically a camera in front of your eye, and then on the other side of the camera was an LCD screen, which was basically displaying the same as the camera, was the same stuff as camera was grabbing, and then he was just adding some virtual content to that stream that was coming to your eye. That's it. In '96, Sony actually released their AR headset. You might not be familiar with it. It was not very well known, but it was called Sony Glastron, and that was a consumer-targeted project. You could play games on it. Then there were several academic projects when they were trying to connect like GPSs, screens, glasses, etc., to create some kind of portable AR devices. And in 1998, the very first augmented reality yellow line on the football field was drawn by Sports Vision. We might know this technique from nowadays as well, because it's being used until now. Then 1999, AR Toolkit was released. That was the very first toolkit for developers to create augmented reality devices. So what you needed actually was the camera and the piece of computer, and that's it. Then 2000, AR Quake was developed, which is not an important milestone, but it's actually kind of unique concept, and it happened 19 years ago. So someone actually ported a piece of Quake 1 to an AR device. So if you're familiar with the game, and you probably are, you might know what it's all about. So there's gonna be aliens somewhere there, yeah. So they were able to render them characters, and you were able to shoot them in your backyard. 19 years ago. And then, 2004, first experiments with mobile augmented reality were conducted with those old-fashioned mobile phones from pre-smartphone era. Then, other big companies started jumping on this bandwagon. So, for example, Lego, they created kind of a consumer product, but it was only at their shops, where you can approach the kind of a box with a TV and a camera with a box of Lego, and on the screen, the actual model which was constructed appeared. Right now, something like that is available in every paper catalog of Lego. I don't know if you tried it ever or checked it. If you would get any paper catalog from the Lego shop, they have a special marks next to Lego models, Lego sets they have. If you install the Lego app on your phone and you look at the Lego catalog with your app, you would actually see the ready set being rendered in front of you. I checked it, it works, and it's actually as this, but you can try it in your phone. Then, 2009, another toolkit was released, a similar thing as AR toolkit, but this one is from Vuforia, which is being developed until now. It's a very good product. Then, 2010, actually 9 years ago. That's when Microsoft started working on HoloLens. It was called Project Baraboo. And it was around the time that Kinect was released. I think it was 2010, something like that. And they started working on HoloLens back then as well. So HoloLens is basically a Kinect with the glasses, I mean, to put it simply. Then, 2011, Magiclip started gathering funding. If you haven't ever heard about this headset, I will have a slide about it later on. Epson also jumped onto this bandwagon, and they have actually right now the selection of glasses you can buy. And Google glasses started in 2011 or around that time. And after that, well, there are more and more glasses that are appearing on the market, but none of them, I mean, is anything. I mean, nothing that is after that is significantly better than whatever we see here. I mean, I'm not mentioning HoloLens 2, for example. So, given all this selection of glasses and experiences I've shown, we can actually categorize all of that right now, so we can start talking about like actual categories. So we have augmented reality systems that are divided to wearables and non-wearables, and obviously wearables are helmets. Those are the glasses with kind of a helmet that covers most of your head. And then we have contacts. Well, we don't have any contacts that we can buy right now, but Samsung, for example, they announced that they're working on some kind of contacts that will be AR capable, whatever that means. And we have headsets, the things like HoloLenses, which could be add-on or integrated. Integrated are like HoloLens, so we put the glasses on your head, and that's the whole computer and glasses. And add-on might be one of those that you actually add on to your real glasses, like Google glasses, or like some clip-ons that can actually clip to your regular glasses, and they just add a screen in front of you. And non-wearables, which mean mobile, so whatever mobile phone or tablet, and stationary, like the Lego thing, and HUDs, which are the things mounted in cars nowadays or in jet fighters, for example. So then, from the software side, and, well, computational powers capabilities side, augmented reality started with something which was called like the first wave. This mainstream augmented reality that kind of started around 2004 and something around that time. It was all based around one thing. We had to have some anchors around in our environment so that we can attach our virtual stuff into it. So most of the experiences back then were based on some kind of tiles with QR codes. And whenever our camera and our system detected this kind of tile, we could align a coordinate system with that tile and then render stuff based on that coordinate system. And it has its usages. I mean, I've seen lots of like educational applications or advertisements based on that. But it was like, most of them was based on the same technique for many, many years. As we got like better hardware, we could just detect them faster or just handle more and more of them. But after that, what happened is the second wave of augmented reality devices and experiences, which happened because we gained more computational power, basically. It's all about that. And this wave, I would say, of experiences is all about the context. So nowadays, the AR-enabled devices, they can scan our environment. They can detect things in our environment. So we no longer need those kind of physical anchors to attach our virtual stuff based on them. We can detect where the wall is, where the sofa is, where the table is, etc. We can detect if the thing we're looking at is a bottle or other smaller object. So current status, I would say, is all about the context. So whenever we are using augmented reality experience, our device and system knows a lot more about the environment that they used to know before. And also, current devices and experiences are also about sharing. So up until not that long time ago, whenever you would like to show something that you were experiencing in augmented reality, you have to basically pass that device to your friend or colleague, or he would be just peeking over your shoulder to see that experience. But right now, basically any major augmented reality experience enables sharing. So this is the picture, for example, from WWDC, where Apple released our ARKit 2, which was where they added multiplier capabilities. So we can create augmented reality application, which is kind of multiplier, so that other people can jump in and experience the same stuff, but on their devices, and everyone can see the same 3D stuff, the same place, but from different angles. And there is this other concept, which is called AR Cloud. There are many companies, after kind of AR hit the mainstream, many companies realized that there's going to be a need of having a big point cloud of the basically Earth, like every single place on the Earth, so that we can attach digital content, for example, here, so that if any other person would come here with their augmented reality device, he or she would recreate whatever someone else has left here. And there are several approaches to this. There are many companies working on this kind of things because, well, they realize it's very important. And even Microsoft recently, along with the introduction of HoloLens 2, they introduced their approach to this problem, which is called Azure Spatial Anchors, which works like this. It's all baked in Azure, their cloud solution. And basically, when you scan with whatever device, because it's cross-platform, it's not only HoloLens. So when you scan your environment, you can place some content at some point, for example, on this stage. And the information about this point where you place that 3D content will be uploaded to Azure, so that whenever someone else will use your application and would download the information from Azure, would be able to recreate and find the same spot that the other person found on other device. So that based on this, you can create, well, multiplier applications. You can create, you can just leave 3D content for other people in that place that they would discover at the later point in time. You can create kind of navigation system based on that as well. There are many possible usages of that. So this is a new service available on Azure. And that's pretty much it. Let's go through the most I would say, maybe the hardware that's available right now, that you can jump onto it, and that you can actually start creating products that you can sell, I would say, and that could bring some value. So one of the most important ones, in my opinion, I might be a little bit biased, but I do like this product, is HoloLens. It was first, have you ever heard about HoloLens? I assume you have. So it was first released in 2016, first version, and at the beginning of this year, Microsoft announced HoloLens 2. Have you seen the second version of it? Videos or the announcements, etc.? Not yet. Okay, so I don't have this device with me because they do not ship it yet. Only like the small group of partners received it. So if you know the first device, it was good enough. So with the second one, they improved the field of view, so it's wider. They improved battery lives. They used different processors, so it's no longer 32-bit architecture. It's now ARM 64 bits, so it's more energy efficient, for example, and it's 64 bits. They added eye tracking. They added more gestures, and that's pretty much it. And this device is cool because I feel this is an advantage because that comes from Microsoft. And whenever you're trying to sell a product to any other industry or an enterprise, when you bring a Microsoft product, you have more trust, like upfront. If you would bring some kind of, but that's only my opinion. If you would bring some glasses which would come from an unknown startup or, less known company, it would be harder to convince the enterprise or the managers to invest in it because, well, it's hard to feel, right, the background. But when it comes from Microsoft, it's kind of easier, I think. Especially that it's easier to integrate with the current infrastructure within the company because it runs Windows 10. So it's, all the mechanisms are well known if the company has Windows already introduced. So the tools that you have to use to develop for HoloLenses are basically Unity, C# language, and that's pretty much it. You can get everything for free. You can actually start developing for it for free as well. You don't have to have a device with you because there are emulators that work pretty good. And that's how I started my journey with HoloLens. I didn't have a device. I just started with emulators. So it's kind of possible. Next thing, which is fairly popular as well, is ARKit. This is a library for Apple devices. And actually, Apple, when they introduced it, they proudly introduced it as the largest AR platform in the world. And they were kind of true, because when they unlock it with the newest iOS update, back then, all of a sudden they had like millions of users around the world with AR-enabled devices in their pocket. So that's true. This is the large market, right? It has its advantages. It has its disadvantages, of course. It's still a mobile thing. You have to have your mobile phone in front of you. You don't have two of your hands free because you have to use one to have your mobile phone in. But it's very it's cheaper to deliver stuff, right? You have broader audience, right? And well, you can just code in Unity as well, or you can use SceneKit from Apple to create them experiences. That's pretty much it. And ARCore, that's the same thing as ARKit basically, but from Google. This is a similar thing, but for Android-enabled devices. And one cool thing here is that last time I checked, ARCore comes with the plugins so that you can add support for in your iOS AR experiences, so that you can have AR. So you can have Android devices and iOS devices having AR solutions and talking to each other. So we can have cross-platform AR experiences between ARCore and ARKit because they have some kind of plugin for that. And the other important hardware is Magiclip. I don't know if you're familiar with that company. It's a startup that they do only this. They're only famous for this thing. They gathered large amounts of money to create this product. It's very similar to HoloLens, so if you know what HoloLens is about, how it works, etc., it's very, very similar product. They just took several different approaches to some minor things, like the whole headset is smaller because they have this smaller, where is that dot? They have the computational unit here. It's wired to the headset, so the headset itself is lighter, but the computational unit you can just hide in your pocket or something like that. It has its disadvantages as well, but well, it depends on the scenario. The biggest disadvantage here is that you can't actually wear regular glasses when using this, which you can do when using HoloLenses. And also the peripheral vision is basically non-existent here, because the approach here is that you only have kind of a tunnel vision like that, like you would be looking for pipes, so you don't see things around you, like in your periphery, which might be a showstopper, for example, on the factory floor or something like that, where health and safety might have problems with this approach, right? So the price is comparable to HoloLens. I think it's $2,500 around to get a headset. To get a HoloLens headset, it's $3,500. So both of them are kind of expensive, but still you have to think about it as enterprise products. So given the cost of like creating the whole application for it, the custom application for it, the cost of the headset isn't that bad, in my opinion. So the cost is obviously less for AR Core and AR Kit because, well, you have the devices problem out of the table, basically. And there's other cool product I want to show you. Rather, it's not something that is or is going to be widely popular, but this is kind of a cool project that Leapmotion is creating. This is actually an open source product, so you can download from GitHub all the instructions how to 3D print the headset and create it by yourself. And they showed cool videos. There are more of them if you would Google Leapmotion and Project North Star, because that's the name of the headset. So they have this cool video what's possible with their technology. This is some proper Minority Report stuff. Because Leapmotion, I don't know if you're familiar with that company. They used to do the small box that you connected via USB, and they did the hand tracking pretty well. So they detected like all the finger movements, all that stuff. So yeah, based on this, they created the headset as well. So they have like really good hand tracking. So yeah, I mean, wrapping it up, right now, I mean, since at least 2016, almost you can apply AR in almost every industry that I know of. I mean, I got inquiries from basically all of them, like finance industry, health industry, military, manufacturing, automotive, like everything you can imagine. Even banks ask for AR experiences sometimes. So you can use currently available devices and software to create value for basically any industry, right? Even like very critical ones, like healthcare industry and surgeons. I personally know people in Poland working on a product for heart surgeons. So it's being used during real surgeon operations. So it is happening. So just you know, our role is to just go there and try do our job and introduce AR to the market, to the industries. And well, maybe not that distant future, we'll have all of them augmented reality experiences like any other senses, augmenting any other senses of ours. We'll have bundled up device, which would be like Tricorder from Star Trek, if you remember the series. But we will probably wear it on our heads somehow. So let's do the inventors. This is Alex Kipman, the inventor of HoloLens and Kinect. Let them do the job of like throwing new hardware at us, and we should just embrace it right now and start creating stuff. And if you're interested in getting more knowledge about where we are and where we are headed with virtual and augmented reality, I do recommend all those 3 books. Especially this one. I think this one is my favorite, Augmented Reality, Augmented Human. Because, I mean, they lay a nice foundation for augmented reality work. And that's pretty much it, I think. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you want to try HoloLens 1, then I have one with me. So if you would like to try it, if you haven't earlier, then just come over and I will give it to you. That's it. Thank you. Time for a beer, I guess.
On the Leapmotion, the hand tracking, the Microsoft HoloLens 2 has hand tracking as well.
Yeah.
Create similar stuff like we saw in that video with the Microsoft HoloLens 2.
But they do only Windows logo there, and it's like start menu thing. So with HoloLens 2, the start menu, how you open the start menu is like I think you get your hand like that, and the small Windows logo appears here, and you basically tap it. But as far as I know, you can't program it. So you can't attach it. Last time I checked, I don't know. But there's, actually with HoloLens 2, there is not much information for developers out there yet. I mean, there is lots of documentation updated, but I mean, we still are not sure about like 100% what are the capabilities gonna be. But yeah, I mean, that question for me is still unanswered, to be honest. Because for example, with HoloLens 1, it was, HoloLens 1, they do have depth camera, but at the very beginning, it wasn't unlocked for developers. After a while, when they pushed the update of Windows 10, they introduced something which is called research mode. So you can enable it for a device, and then you had an access to a raw stream of depth camera. So they might unlock something in the future. You don't know that. Yeah. That's it. And thank you then. Have a nice beer.